Good morning. So, 3 things you can do today to improve your bone health. Yesterday we had our question and answer session, which is all about bone health, the research on it, osteoporosis, osteopenia, which is a bit like the pre-diabetes to type 2 diabetes that osteopenia is to osteoporosis, which is essentially like the decline of bone. Now, I just wanted to share a few things on here that might help because it's not really looked at too much, but scarily, it costs the UK every year 4 billion in terms of from fractures like osteoporotic fractures, which is crazy when you consider, yes, like between the ages of 20 to 30, we peak with our bone mass, but from then, there's a lot of factors that we can control, which I'll go over. Not to mention that this is a scary statistic that if you fracture your hip, 10% of people who fracture their hip, this is from the NICE guidance, which is UK, 10% of those people will die within a month and 33% will die within a year from fracturing their hip, which just goes to show the importance of looking after bone health. And it's not really talked about much, is it really? If you think about that, how much we talk about diabetes, heart disease, all these things, yet bone health isn't really a sexy topic, is it? Really, it's quite like, oh yeah, bone. And when you think about, that, and the fact that 1 in 2 women will get an osteoporotic fracture in their life, whereas 1 in 5 men will, whether that's related to HRT, estrogen, and the drop that we see, like 50 years plus, and before that, perimenopause as well, contraception. Could go into it, go into it in a lot more detail, but today, I want to give you 3 things that you can do to help with that, which is number 1, which is resistance training, loaded training. If you look in care homes, they know that even, it's a place where people deteriorate quite quickly potentially in terms of their bone health, unless they get the right loading in terms of weight, resistance work, or some of the other stuff that we go over just now. But we know that resistance exercise can help with this, the pressure, the bone density that comes with that, whether that's lifting something, whether that's doing body weight stuff, whether that's doing like holding a weight. But body weight stuff is absolutely fine. That still counts as loading on muscle and bone, which all impacts bone density. Even if it's like the boxing sessions like we do sometimes, or whether it's kettlebells or holding a dumbbell or tin of beans, whatever, super simple, doing a squat, doing a push-up against the wall, all these we know help with that. And we know that this is something that we are in control of and that we can add in. So that's number 1. Are you doing some form of resistance work? And this is irrespective of all the other benefits that come with that. But if you look at longevity, muscle, diabetes, all those things as well, that's going to be a big thing. Hey, Linda. Hey, Stephanie. Number 2 is protein intake. Now, when you look at some vegan diets, and there was a study in Oxford done quite recently, they found that meat eaters compared to vegans, every 1,000 cases, like fractures, or so every 1,000 people, if you like, there was 14 more fractures in people who followed a vegan diet than meat eaters. Now, they did control for protein, they did control for Halen, they did control for calcium as well, so even controlling for that, it still existed. But I would still hypothesize that if you bring in more resistance work, if you can bring in more higher protein intake, that's going to help as well. That's going to help benefit that, and that's going to be protective in terms of the muscle as well, not to mention the bone. Because if you think about how conjoined everything is together and how everything works synergistically, you have more muscle, you might have more energy in terms of things feel easier. So you're willing to do more, but you've got to get through that stage. It might feel quite hard at times, and that's why we say start small. Focus on what you can do, not the perfect time, because, well, let's face it, everything's either deteriorating or we're protecting or we're building, but we can't be doing 2 things at once. So, there's only so many tomorrows that we have, unfortunately. So it's thinking about, okay, what can I do today to get started with that? What can I do? What are the small things? Like, how can I add some protein in? And like I said, if you can add that protein in, if you can add that resistance work in, these 2 in themselves are going to be super important. We then go into calcium and vitamin D. Now, we could go into a few others like phytoestrogens, which I went over as well, like the functional foods, which seem to have a lot of benefits as well. But pretty much when you talk to anyone in the street, they'll know that, oh yeah, calcium, etc. And we know that that's very easy to implement into your diet. We know from like studies in care homes, which are obviously very controlled. That's why they're used a lot. Hey, Sue, studies in care homes that even increasing people's diet from like 2 portions of dairy to 4 have a beneficial impact on bone health and risk of falls and fractures, which is obviously really super easy to do, right? That could be from teas and coffees to yogurt, etc. But vitamin D is a no-brainer one. Hey Joe, vitamin D is a no-brainer one, not to mention the other benefits out there. Now, it's actually a bit of a grey area in bone health, simply because so many people are deficient in vitamin D that when they try and do studies, they often compare sufficient with more. Now, we know that the best intervention is one where someone is deficient and you give them it and it has a big impact because, of course, they're deficient in it. The problem is it's seen as very unethical to get someone in who's deficient in vitamin D and then say, right, you're either going to get placebo, no vitamin D, or vitamin D. So it's seen as quite unethical because you're potentially harming that person, because if they're given vitamin D now, they could get benefits, not just with bone health, but their immune system, their gut health, their mood, sad, mental health, all of these things come with it. So it's quite hard to study. But what we know is that nutrition is a difficult science, in that you can't just know that it's not like a drug. You're either having the drug or not. In nutrition, you're either having the vitamin D or not, but the problem comes in that someone might just be outside more. So even though they're not given the vitamin D, they get more vitamin D. They might just eat more oily fish. They might eat more eggs. So naturally, they're getting more. So it's very difficult to distinguish. But what we do know is that calcium and vitamin D in general has a great impact on it. So that's resistance exercise protein, calcium, vitamin D. I'll throw one else in there, especially if you're perimenopausal, postmenopausal, might be worth looking at. Vitamin K2 seems to have an effect, bone health in women, postmenopausal, perimenopausal, but not men. Interesting. Whether that's related to, but I have no idea. I don't even think the researchers really know the mechanism why. But it does seem to be more protective. Whether that, like I said, is linked with HRT, estrogen, whether people take it or not, I don't know. I don't know if they went into that depth in it, but it's definitely interesting to see, especially given the more recent interest with phytoestrogens, which seem to have a benefit, and whether that's linked to, whether that's more beneficial in people who aren't taking HRT, because the people who are taking HRT obviously have estrogen, which is protective of bone. Anyway, I rest my case. That's all I got for today. Really interesting area and not really talked about a lot, but like I said, longevity, health, reasons probably beyond weight loss, beyond starting in January, right? Like reasons to start now and do what you can now, because yeah, who knows? It could make a massive difference to where you are and the decisions you make and how you feel. And your risk of falls. You know, that's the thing. No one walks around and goes, oh, how's your risk of fall going at the moment? Wow, it's soon in the future when it's on your watch. Your risk of fall today is 1.2%. Your risk of fracture from falling down is 0.2%. Yeah, one day we'll maybe be comparing bone densities. How's your bone density today? Yeah, good. I had my calcium and did my resistance work, and it's up to my protein. Anyway, that's the future. For now, let's control what we can, not what we wish we can. Any questions, let me know. Today's the last day to come in on our Christmas Fit program. If you want more information on that, comment below of Christmas with our Kickstart. Hey, Helen. Hey, Debbie. Anyway, have a good one. Busy day, Marlborough, devices, lots of resistance work sessions and talking protein. So I will see you later. Have an awesome one. Take care.